Hello everyone, I'm here to do my June wrap-up, and in June I read 8 books with accounted to 3056 pages and 7 hours 15 minutes. And I think the majority of them were in physical form, which is... It's my intention to go that direction, but I think this month it was a specifically successful month on that front. So the first book I finished in June was Brotherless by Ganeshananthan. And this was the winner of the Women's Prize. When I read it was shortlisted, but then it won, and I'm very happy it won. So this is about a young woman in Sri Lanka, and she has 3 brothers, I think, 3 or 4, and it's around the time when the Sri Lankan Civil War started, and it was a bit about the conflict with her and her brothers of following the rebels, or none of them really liked the government, but what was the way to deal with that? Is like rebelling violently and then more civilians die, or is it there is a political way to do it? And Sashi, the main character, doesn't really care about the politics or any of that. She just wants to be a doctor and help people, and she doesn't care about which side. She just wants to help the people that need it. And so she starts studying, and there is this point in which she meets this very opinionated woman that is her teacher, that she like this teacher is respected among colleagues, but of course she was not like fully included because she was a woman, and she was always perceived as opinionated when she was holding her ground, basically. And so she takes a lot from her, and we see that relationship growing, but also the relationship with each of her brothers, and how that made her go in certain directions on the war and take certain stands, even though she didn't believe in the ideology behind these things. It was very well done. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was a very captivating story, so I'm glad I read it, and I'm glad it won the Women's Prize. Next book I finished was Eve by Bohannon, and this is one of the also Women's Prize for non-fiction, and I haven't read a lot of those books. I'm so happy they decided to do a non-fiction category of the Women's Prize, because there are some really good books in that list. So yeah, this one was one of them. I picked it up for that reason mainly, and because it sounded interesting. This is basically about how specifically the female body has evolved to do the things that it does, such as like how babies grow, how they are fed with the milk, how like the hips and things like that work. It's divided in sections of like, so it's divided in milk, womb, perception, legs, stools, brain, voice, menopause, and love, and it kind of goes through the evolutionary reasons for each of those, or like the evolutionary paths, and it goes back to the first ancestor, she calls it, the first Eve, that had that particular characteristic. So like the first hominids to produce milk, or to walk upright, or to have the menopause, and she goes through like the reasons why that trait might have stayed. And it's a very inclusive book as well, like trans women are also included in the book, and also it says at the very beginning like the reason that these things evolved the way they did is not because that is the purpose of women, like the fact that we have babies doesn't mean that that's the purpose of a woman. It's just that having babies, if you choose to, is so freaking difficult that our bodies had to evolve strategies to survive that process, which is a different perspective on the thing that many people have, I think, and I really appreciated that as well. The Eve concept for each thing, I'm not sure how well it worked in some of them. So like scientifically, some of the things were a little bit of a stretch, but overall I think it's like an incredibly well researched book. It has like, I don't know, like 100 pages of references at the end, and it is very thorough and it is very interesting, and I think it's also things that are not really talked about that much when we talk about evolution or when we talk about women bodies, and yeah, I really liked it. Then the next book I read is The Golden Gate by Vikram Seth. I did read this in physical form, but if you have seen my Seattle blog, I left this in Seattle together with another book because I just didn't need to keep them and I had to reduce my luggage. So yeah, I did read this one. It's told in poetry form, and it's about this group of friends in Silicon Valley, and they're very privileged and they're very unaware of their privilege, and it just feels very like not interesting. And I think the way that some of these things were portrayed looked to me like Vikram Seth was trying to make a parody of it and kind of make fun of the whole bubble of Silicon Valley, but it just didn't work for me. Like, I didn't particularly enjoy the sarcasms or whatever, and I didn't think that that particular bubble is interesting enough even for a satire, so I was a bit disappointed with this one, to be honest. The next one I finished was Mirror's Shoulder Signal by Dorthe and translated by Misha Hoekstra. It's kind of yeah, it's about this woman that is like, I think mid-30s or 40s, something like that, and she's kind of like not really satisfied with her life, so she tries to change some things on it, and she tries to start learning to drive, and then she's a mess because she sees like the pressure of the driving instructor and stuff like that, and then she's also like, it's basically about her everyday life and her not being satisfied with her life and all of the little pressures that she gets, like from the driving instructor and her mother and all of those little things. It was okay. I didn't think it was anything special, to be honest. It was just okay. Then the next book that I read was Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo, which is the second book in the Six of Crows duology. And this one I also left in Seattle. I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed this series. I think it's nice for me every once in a while to read like a fantasy series that is like not low stakes, but like it doesn't feel like it's actual life, you know. And yeah, I enjoyed it. As I said also in the first book when I reviewed that, I didn't love that everyone ended up paired up, and of course it felt like everyone was gonna be okay at the end, because that's the kind of book this was. But yeah, I enjoyed the story and the kind of mysteries. There is a bit of a Sherlock Holmes element of like, they get into all of this trouble and you know that the main character always has a plan, so you're like looking for where is the plan gonna go and try to guess what he's gonna do, and then he comes out with these super complicated ways to escape and take revenge of things, and then when things seem to go wrong, he already planned that those things were gonna go that way, and then he has like a way to deal with that as well. So yeah, that's kind of these two books are kind of like that, and I enjoy them for what they are. The next one I finished in audio was Dark Constellations by Pola Oloixarac. I don't know, I'm sorry if I butchered that. And this one was actually very weird. So it follows a couple of characters that are like scientists and academics, and they somehow live through the ages. Like, it starts in the 1800s and it finishes past current time, and they kind of looked at the the way that humans interact with each other and how they interact with biology. It was very weird, and I don't think I completely got what it was trying to do, and I was a little bit lost. So yeah, I think if it was not in audio, I might not have finished this one, because it was a little bit just too wacky for me. Then the next book I read was The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I read this as part of my book club, and it was very warm and cozy. This is about this government official that is going to an orphanage for magical kids to investigate the orphanages and make sure that the kids are safe and happy. That's like his job description, but he's sent to this orphanage that is in an island that is very mysterious, and that's because they have 6 kids that are quite extraordinary, one of them being the literal Antichrist. And so we follow this man going there, trying to do his job, and getting, like, he's trying to be impartial, and then he kind of falls in love with the children and also with the the director of the orphanage, and this brings up a lot about the prejudices that people have against magical kids, magical people, and how these people are perceived and are marginalized. And for me it was interesting because it's very on the nose, it's not subtle about any of this, but like talking about prejudice, this man is gay, and we know from the beginning that he's gay, and there's never any prejudice. Like, he has this very annoying, nosy neighbor that in real life you will expect her to be like, oh, but I know a girl, you should meet this girl. But in this book she was like, oh, you're alone, you should meet my nephew, he's very nice, you two should meet, that kind of thing. So I think that that was a very nicely done thing, and I enjoyed it for it. It was nice, it was cozy, it was very cozy, but it's not like something super impactful, but it's just cozy. And the last book I finished this month was Wifedom by Anna Fender, which is again for the Women's Prize of Nonfiction, and this is about the wife of Orwell. Basically it shows how Orwell was a horrible misogynistic person, like horrible. There was this point in which he told his wife, you know, I'm obsessed with this friend of yours, so I'm going to go have sex with her twice a year so that I get her out of my head, and I expect you to be okay with that. And then he went to this woman and he was like, you have to have sex with me because I'm obsessed with you and I have to get you out of my head. And both of these women were like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Yeah. So a lot of things like that. He also decides against her will that he wants to adopt a child, and then he leaves her to go pick up the child in the hospital and take care of him for months because he had other things to do, like play golf or whatever. Yeah, horrible, horrible person. And then there were some things about this book that I didn't like it's not very fact-based, I think. It's never super clear which part of what she's saying is speculative and which part is like actual information that has sources, because there is no, I mean, there's notes at the end, but there's no like references within the book, and there are some parts that are like, you know, like smaller, like it looks like letters, but some of them are letters and some of them are speculative. And there was one point in which she mentioned that several scholars seem to think that he's gay, and that's why he was so misogynistic. And I'm sorry, but being gay doesn't make you a misogynistic person, so that's not really, I mean, maybe that was related, but that's not, yeah, that's not a good justification. With all that said, I think it does give enough proof that he was a horrible man and all the amazing things that she did. And I think it's good to bring attention to this aspect, and I finished the book not wanting to read any more Orwell in my life. But yeah, if you are planning to read this book, be aware that it's not the most thoroughly scientific academic book in the world. But yeah, it's still a good book, and it still touches on a topic that I think it's interesting to discuss in a setting like this. So yeah, those are all the books I read this month. Let me know if you have read any of them, if you like them, what do you think about them, and until next video, bye!